There's a place, not so far away, a place where you don't have to keep the volume down. You'll find all sorts of creatures in this place without have to. The silly you, the proud you. You may even meet the curious you.
It's tickling me! You!
Ask your parents to take you to this not so far away place. Come to the forest, where the other you lives. But first, stop by discovertheforest.org.
Welcome to This Week with Sheriff Dave Phalen, a weekly program here on 90.9 FM WFCO Radio, and also on Time Warner, Channel 9, LSN TV, right here in Lancaster. Each and every week we have programs where we feature guests from within the Fairfield County Sheriff's Office. This week's special guest is Sgt Hamler. Good to see you. I think this is the second time you've been aboard.
Yes. Yeah.
And do welcome you back. And one of the reasons I thought it was important to have Sgt Hamler on this week is last year we had a program which we called the Scrap Team, and that team was a drug intervention team that targeted drug dealers and people involved in drug activity in and around Fairfield County. We started to think about what we wanted to do this summer and decided that we would go ahead and start the team up again, and Sgt Hamler is actually the commander of that team. And maybe you can give probably a better explanation to me exactly what the idea behind the team is.
Okay. The SCRAP team actually stands for Street Crime Reduction Apprehension Program. Basically, we're going to try to focus on the opiate issues that we're having in Fairfield County, along with the marijuana issues that we're having. Basically, the team consists of 3 deputies from the Sheriff's Office, myself, Chief Bailey from the Lancaster Police Department actually gave one of his officers to the team, which is great cooperation on his part. We're also working closely with the Major Crimes Unit. Commander Brown was nice enough to actually let us work out of their office for the summer. He's given us all the equipment that we need, access to vehicles, and it's just been great working with them so far.
Now, last summer, there was 81 arrests in about a 7-week period, and we actually used some of the positions from the school resource officers, correct?
Correct.
And for our viewers and listeners, every year we have officers that are assigned to different school districts in Fairfield County. But what happens when school is out, then they come back to the Sheriff's Office during the summer months, and we've actually used those positions to start this scrap team. And based on what we've seen in just the first couple of days of the program, it looks like it's going to be another busy summer for you guys.
I hope so, yes.
Tell us a little bit about some of the arrests that have been made, and for our viewers out there, these are arrests that took place within 24 hours of the team starting this year.
On the first day of the program, which was Monday, we were able to initiate a traffic stop on 33 at Old Columbus Road. As a result of that traffic stop, we recovered 3.8 grams of heroin, arrested 2 individuals. Both were charged with felony 4 possession of heroin, felony 4 trafficking in heroin, and felony 3 tampering with evidence. On the second day of the program, which was yesterday, deputies responded to an anonymous tip about an indoor marijuana grow. When the deputies got to the scene, they were able to search the residence, and while doing so, they recovered 29 marijuana plants, along with another bag of marijuana. As a result of that, the homeowner was charged with felony 5 cultivation of marijuana and felony 3 having weapons under disability for having a loaded firearm.
So this was a somewhat a sophisticated marijuana operation, wasn't it?
Yes.
And it was an indoor operation?
It originally began indoor,
Okay.
in the basement. There was a lot of equipment in the basement that was used to start the process. And then once the plants started to mature, he actually moved them outside. But yeah, it was a pretty sophisticated operation that he had.
Now, you mentioned earlier on the first arrest during the first day of individuals bringing heroin into the county, and you had intelligence they were actually selling the drugs once they got into Lancaster, right?
Correct. We received information that they were actually selling at a residence in Lancaster, and that on a daily basis they would travel to Columbus to purchase the heroin, bring the heroin back down to Lancaster to distribute, and we were able to initiate a traffic stop on 33 on their way back from Columbus with the product.
Now, you mentioned it was an anonymous complaint. So if citizens have information, they do not have to give their name or anything. They can just call in and give it, and we'll hopefully act upon it, right?
That's correct. They can either call me at the Fairfield County Sheriff's Office, and my phone number is 740-652-7902. That will ring straight to my desk. Or they can actually, the Major Crimes Unit has set up somewhat of a tip line for us. If you call out to the Major Crimes Unit, which is 654-5224, area code 740, you're going to go through a series of prompts. It's going to ask you if you want to speak to certain detectives. And there's actually a prompt if you want to leave a tip for the scrap team.
Now, at the time we tape these programs ahead, obviously. At the time we're taping this, we're into the third day of the scrap program. And you mentioned before airtime that you're actually, today, you have 4 tips or 4 information on some criminal activities. Did that kind of surprise you so soon in, or did you kind of say, well, we kind of knew we were going to get into this?
I'm a little bit surprised on how much of a problem there is and how much information we do have at this point to start out with. Yeah, today we have several tips that we're following up on. We've actually split the team into 2 groups today, and they're basically going to these locations and they're trying to see if it's a valid concern or not, and then they'll get back with me on what they've found. So.
Citizens out there, Sergeant, what would be some things that they would want to look for if they're out there, some things you would need to kind of help you along during an investigation?
Of course, a major concern would be if you have a lot of traffic flow at a residence. One thing that's usually not common is for a car to pull up to a residence, stay there for a minute or 2, and then to leave. Most people, when they go to visit somebody, they're actually in there for a half hour. You know, they're going to go in, they're going to visit, they're going to talk about things, especially if you have numerous vehicles doing the same thing, pulling up to a residence. Of course, things that would help us, if they could obtain license plate numbers off of these vehicles, descriptions of the occupants inside of the vehicles. That way we can run that information. We have several resources that we can use to try to get information on those individuals, and we'll act upon it from there.
That's good. So we want to make sure that our viewers and listeners out there, if they do suspect some kind of suspicious activity, if they have information, to make sure they call it in right away, and then we will work on it.
Yes. And if they want to leave their name, if they want follow-up information, we will follow up with them. If they want to leave their name and phone number, I will have somebody from the team contact them, maybe ask a few more details on what they have. But by all means, if they want to stay anonymous, we'll still follow up on the tip.
And I think one of the other things we talked about, certainly when the school starts again, the officers are going to be going back to the schools, the program's going to be shut down. So certainly our hope would be at some point there might be the availability of funding to go ahead and keep the program going. I don't think there's any doubt that it doesn't stop at the end of the summer.
Right.
Continues on.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, you mentioned that we're working with the Lancaster Police Department, the Major Crimes Unit. How important is that to have a effort when you're involved, when you have different agencies working together? as far as the success of those programs?
Oh, it's tremendous. Working for the Sheriff's Office, we primarily receive information on things that are happening outside of the city of Lancaster. We don't receive a lot of information on what's going on inside of the city. And there is a huge drug problem in the city. By having somebody on the team from the Lancaster Police Department, the officers at the Lancaster Police Department are able to contact this officer with information that they receive on calls or tips, and we're able to follow up on them that way. We've actually received a lot more tips because the Lancaster Police Department is involved.
I think that's so important, and it's fortunate we have such a good relationship today with the Lancaster Police Department. In fact, I had lunch with Chief Bailey today, and over lunch we're actually talking to you, and he had some information he was sharing with you during lunch. So these kind of relationships are just so important, especially when you're working with drug activity. We know today that these drug couriers, these drug dealers, they're mobile, they're moving about, they're moving in different jurisdictions. So when we got everybody kind of working on the same page, it's going to make a big difference.
Mm-hmm. And again, working out at major crimes, I mean, that's a huge asset. Commander Brown has given us access to their computers, to their database. If we receive information on a suspect, we can run all the information through their computers. We can look at any past history that they've done at the residence or any dealings that they've had with the suspect. It just really helps our investigations out.
Now, as far as you mentioned, again, before airtime, that one of the individuals that you arrested was kind of now going through withdrawal. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty common too, isn't it, when we see that?
Usually a heroin addict, if they're not using that heroin every 24 hours or so, they're going to start going through pretty bad withdrawals.
Yeah, and certainly as part of the issues we see in the jail, we have to deal with a lot of sick people. Mm-hmm. It would be my guess that today probably 60% of our jail population is addicted to heroin or opiates. Mm-hmm. And I've said this many times, my guess is, and I may even be low on this today, that probably 85% of our theft-related offenses, where they're breaking in cars, when they're breaking in houses, these are individuals that are trying to support a drug habit.
Correct. Our goal is to not only put a dent in the opiate problem, but by doing that we should eliminate a lot of our theft calls, right, our burglary calls. The users are out there stealing things just to pawn them, just to get the cash, quick cash, so that they can buy. And it may just be enough to get them by through the day, and the next day they may have to go back out and steal more.
So is it your sense that most of the people the dealers that we're dealing with are addicted themselves? Or is it, are you seeing that's just a percent, and there's some people that are not addicted, they just strictly in it for business?
I would say a little bit of both, but I would say that more of the dealers it does appear, are using also. It looks like they're probably buying a bulk amount, they're selling off some of it, they're using some of it, and then they're using the money from selling to support their habit also.
Okay, well, good. With us this afternoon, we've had Sgt Hamler with the Fairfield County Sheriff's Office assigned to the scrap team this summer, and starting off with a bang, so to speak. And we're going to have the sergeant back with us next week. We're just about out of time to talk a little bit about maybe some warning signs with young people, with neighbors, with children. Some of the warning signs you would want to look at as a parent. And we're going to be talking a little bit about that, and certainly a little bit more about the scrap team. Do appreciate the folks here at Fairfield Christian Academy giving us this opportunity to use their studio to put this program together, and the folks at 90.9 FM who have been gracious enough for the last 10 years, I guess almost 11 years now, to feature a program where we've had many, many guests from within the Fairfield County Sheriff's Office and beyond, and certainly the folks over at Time Warner, Channel 9, LSN, who has now brought this to television. So appreciative of all these folks, and certainly you, the viewers and listeners. And one last thing before we go, Sarge, go ahead and give them that telephone number again. And if you're out there today and you suspect some kind of unusual activity, suspect suspect drug activity, we would just ask that you go ahead and call. We will give you a call back. And again, the number again, Sarge?
Area code 740-652-7902. That's actually to my desk at the Sheriff's Office. Or they could call the scrap tip line, which is 740-654-5223.
Thanks a lot. Until next week, same time, same place, this is yours truly, Sheriff Dave Phalen. If you're out there driving, buckle up, God bless, and we'll see you right here next week.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds.